Welcome back to another HEF podcast. That is the podcast of the Home Education Foundation. We're very grateful this morning to have such awesome intro music provided to us by one of our very own up here in Tallahassee, Florida. Thank you, sir. Donations and support for the Home Education Foundation come in many forms, and this father's talents is one of them, and so we're very grateful to him. You know who you are. We thank you. Also, if you don't know who she is, Brenda Dickinson is the founder of the Home Education Foundation all the way back to the early 1990s, which is just after securing the home education rights as a bill and then in statute in 1985. And we're so thankful to have had the work of Brenda Dickinson carrying the torch, being the voice of parents in the Capitol, in the Home Education Foundation for the last 40 years. That's 40, not 14, 40 years. Brenda Dickinson and her husband Craig Dickinson and Representative Daniel Webster, and she told me last week it was Senator Dick Langley. That's what it was, and we're very thankful for all of their hard work and the early pioneers, moms. There's a lot to do with moms. I just got to say, and I'm very thankful for all the mothers, including my own, who, I went to her and I said, hey, look, I think I want to be homeschooled as public school was a struggle for me. I was doing well in school academically, and then I hit that middle/high school area, and it just became so difficult. And my mom heard that. I started going from a A student to a C's and D student, which is, and I, as a fumbling little kid, I had no idea. So the freedom and flexibility of homeschooling kind of appealed. And I'm thankful for all of the moms who dared to do something so weird in our time. And it's funny because as you look back, it shouldn't really be that weird. For all of human history, parents have taught their own kids. They have helped them pave their way. And sometimes they would work in the family business on the farm, or they would venture out into the world with an uncle or a cousin or someone else, and they would see what the world had to offer. And it's so weird today to think that you can even be able to teach your own kids how to survive. It's so odd that we're in a time and place where public education is so default and normal that it's weird to teach your own kids. So I'm thankful for all of those early moms, especially those who played a part in pushing for laws and legislation with our legislature to get rights secured. Thank you. And thank you to all the parents in the free state of Florida. You guys are amazing. You're awesome. We love that you support the Home Education Foundation. We're so thankful for our first ever annual fundraiser that we did in August, where a home education family offered a challenge. We are looking for a challenger for the 2026 fundraiser. So if you know someone who would like to issue the next challenge, this home education family, thank you, sir, approached us and said, hey, I would like to put up a $6,000 match. If you can find home education families across the state who would be willing to donate in, once they reach $6,000, we will match that $6,000 with a donation of our own. And right there, toward the end of the month of August, the floodgates opened and people everywhere started to participate. All of the parents came together, and we met the challenge. And the first ever annual fundraiser for the Home Education Foundation was done in 2025, and you were a part of it. If you were a part of it, you will be getting one of the challenge coins. We are still having those made. We're trying to be judicious and find the right ones. But we're also looking forward to next year, where we'll have perhaps, this is one of the ideas we've been rolling around, have a contest where students across the state can design the next challenge coin, and we'll give them a theme. Since this next year is the 250th anniversary of our country, our nation, it would probably be something along that line. But just little teasers for that to come. We're also thankful for our top sponsors, Arete, FBEA, Fisher Precious Metals, and TBHC Group. So thankful to have you all as top sponsors. These are top sponsors. Our slots are set aside for those companies that are really, really interested in freedoms, in particular, parental freedoms and education, and they see the benefits and they want to promote that. And so they come alongside of us with a hefty tax write-off donation, and we're so thankful to have them with us. Unfortunately, even with all of that, we are still not fully funded. We're very close, but it is still something that's very important. If you know someone who hasn't become a sponsor or a donor, or they haven't even heard of us, and they want to participate in some way, they can go to our website at flhef.org/support, and they can pick one of the we have, pick your own donation and type it in all the way down to just put it on $5 or $10 a month and let it ride. We have a lot of families who do that, and we're very thankful. Very, very thankful. So we're also very thankful for, I caught her. I turned the video camera on right as she was drinking. Sorry, Brenda. We're here. Thank you, Brenda, for being with us again today. Man, it's been an exciting weekend. What did you do for Halloween? I know some people in our circles celebrate it, some people don't. Do you do anything special fall festivities-wise or anything like that?
No.
Okay. We have
my fall activities, as you well know, is packing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We've been working all that together. We have a nice little community that we found that reminds me of when I grew up in Alabama, and the whole kind of community comes together, and then they go through the neighborhood together, and all the kids are running around, and the weather is cool, and they're got their pillowcases, and they're tromping through people's yards. It's great. It's great, and it's wonderful to see that. We moved up from Tampa, where we didn't quite have that, and we've landed in a beautiful place. So I'm very thankful for what God has done and where He's moved us and the work that He's been doing. So we hope He continues to do that. I've got to say, speaking of things that were scary like Halloween, the AI hallucinations are kind of scary. When we think, we can go searching for information and find it, and Google and a lot of the search engines had not yet integrated AI. I think AI is literally only a couple of years old, and I mean, in the public having its hands on it. And it baffles me how fully integrated in such a short amount of time it has become, where it is just so normal. I've argued with AI, Google AI and ChatGPT and several others, about things that when I would search or ask it, it would actually be factually incorrect. Especially when it comes to things like rights and freedoms or something of a philosophical bent. And, it's people might go to it and ask it for help about what should I say to my mom about this, or how do I talk to my girlfriend about that? And they're literally going to AI for a lot of these questions. And some people, how do I homeschool? Or, can I homeschool like this? Or how does it work in Florida? Or things like that. And so the new search engines have AI kind of integrated into them. And a lot of people are using those and relying on them. And I have to tell you that information is not pulled from a 100% accurate, verified database of answers that are pre-vetted and sitting there ready to go. It's a large language model that is designed to sound like it knows what it's talking about and give you information as if it has the full confidence of someone who fully knows what it's saying. I saw a meme recently that was really funny. It was can I eat this mushroom? And it goes, yes, you can absolutely eat that mushroom. And then it goes on, and then it's like the next part of the meme is a tombstone RIP on it, and it goes, "Oh, absolutely, you're so right. That mushroom is poisonous. You should not eat that mushroom." I'm like, yes, thank you, AI overlords. You're so right. Mistakes were made. I think it's important that, as parents, we understand that there are legal ramifications for the choices that we make, especially with, what we do with our children. I mean, in a society governed by laws, there's always legal ramifications for everything that we do. And knowing what your rights are is very, very important. And I would highly recommend not leaving that up to a hallucinating AI or a hallucinating TikTok influencer or a hallucinating Instagram influencer. Be very careful. Yeah, for Facebook. Be very careful. Human interaction, as we seek truth and we look to verify answers and look for accurate information, very carefully need to make sure that you not just see that AI has referenced a couple of sources, but click them and read them. You have to do the due diligence of clicking the additional resources and actually reading them. Because sometimes the article or the snippet or someone's blog post or the conversation on social media that it pulled from is actually arguing out the opposite thing, but it grabs a snippet and puts it up there and then it presents that as the answer. And so you thought that was the answer when in fact it's the opposite. I wish I had screenshots right now to show. Just be mindful that in the pursuit of accurate information, you must dig into your sources. We all must dig into our sources. We cannot simply take anything that the search engine throws at us or that the AIs throw at us and delegate the due diligence of vetting them to an AI. It's really important. And the more pervasive AI becomes in its use, the more important that becomes. We have seen even it gets complicated by the fact that, especially in the homeschool world, there are 50 different states, 50 different sets of law, and in the homeschooling world, with all of the multiplicity of ways and the total freedom to be able to do it, there is not uniform agreement on what words mean. And so you have a lot of people who have come into home education in the recent years and blown up. Especially here in Florida, we have gone from a 2% population home education registered to a 6 to 8% population. And that's largely due to COVID and the recent scholarships and different things like that have just pulled. There were a lot of people who moved from out of state. They heard about Florida's freedoms. They wanted to exercise them. There are a lot of many, many reasons, but all of these people are new. Some of them are new to Florida, period. Some of them are new to just new to home education. And so understanding the nuances is key. And we, even among the homeschool crowd, we don't all use the same words for everything. It's very important to realize that. Crystal, you found something recently that was along that lines.
Yeah. So there was a podcaster, live streamer I was watching, a very popular one. And she does not live in Florida, but she recently started homeschooling, and someone in the comments had asked, how do you do this? Because I've tried and failed a couple of times. It just didn't seem to work for us. And her response was, you need to find a micro school. And then she went on to describe what I would absolutely call a co-op. She said that she and a couple other moms get their kids together and they take turns teaching things, and they just have a community, which is not at all what micro school currently means in Florida when people are throwing the term around. That's typically more what we would call a co-op, or if it's a more formal structure than a home education instructional program, a business that is creating that community for home education families. So it was funny to me because she was like, oh, you need a micro school. That's what you need. But what she meant by that was not at all what I would have assumed she meant by that.
Yeah.
So, the terms are 100% not uniform, even within Florida, but especially if you're talking to someone outside of Florida where the laws are different, wherever they might live, what things are called, and, in the law and also just colloquially are going to be very different.
Yeah, that's one of the challenges that we've been working on recently. It's been on my mind a lot because the more that we use words for things and the word salad kind of gets jumbled and cut up and cut off, like, oh, well, you know what I mean. You know what I'm talking about. That thing that you do. No, I don't. And then we start to wonder why certain types of things need to be eligible purchases. Who even schools like that? Why would somebody do it that way? Because it works for my child. And the ability to customize your education for your child is not school. It's not a mass-produced, systematic approach, a school. So we don't call it homeschooling. In fact, in the state of Florida, homeschooling isn't a legally recognized thing. Home education is, and the personalized education program is. So you can do a personalized education program for your child in which you personalize the education to your child, or you can start a home education program in which you have the right to teach your own children in your own home, in your own way. And these are very important. It seems like a distinction without a difference to a lot of people, because they're not really concerned with what difference does it make if I say it this way or if I say it that. What difference does it make if we call them micro schools or co-ops? Well, it makes a huge difference if one of them, I recently saw one that was saying, hey, homeschooling is hard. Let us help you homeschool your kids. 5 days a week, 9 to 3. Drop your kids off, and we'll help you get started homeschooling. And I spoke with this parent, and they, well, I'm a certified teacher, and I know how to educate, and I know what I'm doing, and all of that is wonderful and great, and I appreciate her heart. There's no need to make enemies out of anyone, but it's important to understand the difference between a program where you hand your children off to someone else for the day, 5 days a week, 4 days a week, 3 days a week. When you're handing them off, handing over the entire education, you're not curating the program yourself. You're hoping that they'll help you do that. You're abdicating. It's the same systematic process as abdicating out all the choices to the public school, the government-run schools, or the private-run schools. And so a school-like entity is different than home education, which is why we don't call it homeschooling, really, in Florida.
It's more like a micro school is more like a mini private school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you don't do the education. Somehow people have misconstrued that as being home education because they meet in somebody's home.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not the intent behind the home education law in Florida. The intent is for a parent to direct the education of their child.
Yeah.
However, the mini school or micro school, somebody else directs the education of your child.
Mm-hmm. And I think some of the difference gets lost in the fact that we lack making a distinction in those words. We don't necessarily draw a hard line going, oh, we don't homeschool. We're a home education family. We teach our own kids. And a co-op is where people cooperate. They cooperate together. So they still educate their own children, but when they come together, they cooperate in the education, and then they go back on their merry way. And when you're cooperating together, the parents aren't leaving. So these are very interesting. They're nuances, they're distinctions, but there really truly is a difference between something where
Yeah.
all of the parents are together as a community, trading off, and their kids are getting interaction and social skills, and they're learning about how to blow up rockets or how to paint this and that or how to make a color out of that flower, or there's all kinds of things that are really cool and interesting. Or taking your kids, circling through, dropping them off, picking them back up later with no interaction.
Yeah, and I think all of this was further complicated by the term home education instructional programs when it was introduced for the PEP statutes, because
Yeah.
that's intended to be for home education families that are essentially co-oping in a more formal sense. They formed a business entity. They're maybe exchanging some funds so that the teachers can be compensated for their time. And so it really is intended to be just a more formalized co-op structure. But other businesses have come in under that now through the scholarship that are not parent directed like that. And they are more drop-off programs. And some home education instructional programs have varying degrees of parent involvement. So it all becomes very muddled and confusing, especially to new families that are coming into this, to understand the difference. But I think what Brenda said, that core difference really is, are you as the parent the one planning and directing your kids' education in an a la carte sense? You're picking and choosing which classes they take, or are you handing those decisions over to an entity that is doing all of that for you?
Yeah. So what is the point of this conversation? From AI hallucinations to how we talk about things, it's really important, because when you go searching for answers, when you go looking for what is what, how do we do X? Do we have a right to do X? What right do we protect? I want to be very clear. The Home Education Foundation protects parents' rights. That parents' authority should be established over their children, should be carved out, well seen, and very, very recognized and obvious in all of the educational aspects, especially the freedom to be left alone and do it your own way with your own kids, and go on your merry way. That is ultimately why we haven't changed or rebranded the name of the Home Education Foundation to anything else, because we definitely, that is the tip of our spear, and we'll jam it as far as we can. Home education, you and your kids doing your thing. We fight for that. We love, however, something recently that I saw with our education commissioner, Anastasios Koumoutsas, was before Leon County, and he's holding them accountable to some of the spending and some of the things that are going on, and some of the words that have been said that create a hostile environment for kids who are going to public schools and trying to learn in a free and safe environment. And I applaud that, what he's doing. And somebody had kind of replied back, I think it was on our Facebook, and I think they deleted it later, but they had replied back, well, why do you care, basically? Well, we do care, because at every phase, parents' rights and authority and freedoms and protecting the freedoms of free discourse are huge. They're huge. Whether the line is in public education or private education or home education, that is truly the most important piece of it. And to see our leaders standing up for that and planting a flag on parents' rights in public with accountability measures in place is beautiful to watch. It's absolutely an amazing, beautiful thing to see. So now when we go back to...
Very unusual for a state official to show up at a school board meeting.
Yeah.
So that was very significant
that
he showed up there.
Yeah, and it's also, this is important because Brenda, you know better than I, because you were there when the home education bill was drafted and pushed forward. that it was done so in a Democrat-controlled legislature. And this is not a partisan issue. This is a parents' issue. This is a parents' rights issue and a freedom issue, not a Republican, conservative, Democrat, liberal. It's not a political issue. This is a rights issue. It's very important to. There's a lot of alignment, I think, with a more conservative approach at this moment, because it's one of those things that just fits the small government, leave us alone, let us do our thing. It fits that. But it may not always be the case. It may not always be loved by Republicans. In fact, some of the resistance that we have seen recently in getting those freedoms established, the pushback has come from the R side of the aisle. And it's come from the D side of the aisle too. But
we have these crossover and stand pretty firm on our rights.
That's right. And so it's very important. It's very important as we discuss what we do. We're looking for accurate information as parents, that we're searching and not necessarily relying on hallucinating AIs or hallucinating influencers who may come from another state or, holy moly, might be in another country altogether, but speak really good English and not have a clue, what the global home education trends, how they differ, nuanced by state and law, that you do or don't have the right. This was something that was really interesting to me when we were participating in the Educa por Diseño event down in South Florida. The homeschool crowd there, they opened it up and did a virtual event, and there were people from Colombia and Venezuela and Peru, all over, chiming in and listening in on that podcast or that event as a whole. And I found it challenging to discuss home education law because a lot of the people who are listening aren't Floridians per se. They're not dealing with Florida law. They're asking, hey, how in my country of Colombia do I get parents' rights carved out? Like, how did you do it? They're starting. We're here 40 years after Brenda with laws in place that over the years, little by little, she has etched out conversation after conversation and talking here and being on that committee there and put painstaking life work into it. And they're looking at it going, how do we get to there? How do we get to where you are? And it's a different conversation. So the questions that you might be Googling or searching or looking, do I have the right to do this in Florida? Can my kid play sports at a public school? Or can we do robotics clubs? Or how do we start a robotics club? You might ask, how do I start a robotics club? And it might tell you, go to a public school. Like in order to really, truly chart your own course and find your own way, the way that fits for your kid, your child, I mean, Google it and ask, but
may have to do some do-it-yourself starting a club.
Lean into that.
Yeah.
Lean into that DIY, because there's, one of the parents that I said that to was not happy. They were not happy. They're like, well, I guess you don't fight for all homeschoolers' rights in Florida, only some, I suppose. And I thought, wow, why are we fighting so hard to force public schools to take care of homeschoolers? I mean, there are definitely things where it's beneficial to go get a class, an AP chemistry or something like that, and it's useful and it's a great opportunity, but there's so many private options. There are so many co-ops, groups. There's so many.
I was gonna add that DIY is definitely something to consider, but before you launch your own whatever it is you're doing, there may already be one near you that someone else has launched. Because I see the other thing I see a lot in Facebook groups are parents announcing that they're launching this brand new thing when I know there's a dozen of them already in the area. And so there's a disconnect of like parents actually communicating with other parents in their area. So if you can join, I mean, like for Tallahassee and Tampa, for sure, I know there are Facebook groups specifically for homeschoolers in those regions.
Or our Discord.
Yes, our Discord can help you connect. Also, if you can get on, neighborhood, what is the one the next door app or something, like if you can't figure out how to connect on Facebook, or if our Discord, if you're hopped in there and you're waiting for people to get back to you, there's, try other things and check what's in your area, because there are enough home educating families in Florida that there's probably somebody in your area who's doing at least something. And maybe you can connect with them, and then you won't be alone in whatever it is you're launching.
Yeah.
You can find other people that are interested in that.
Yeah, there's definitely.
Well,
go ahead. Sorry.
Even a way to find them is, if you're interested in a robotics club, call Legos and ask them what clubs are participating in your area.
Mm-hmm.
They know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted to throw that out there, because I do see a lot of parents doing all the work of launching a new thing when there's already that exact thing that someone else has launched that they could just plug into.
Yeah,
so
I think that's the blessing and the curse of going your own way, right? Is you go your own way, you do your own thing. It's free. Yeah, free. It's what's the word? Liberating. Not free as in cost-wise. It's liberating. But sometimes it feels lonely because you've disconnected and gone your own way so far that you're like, man, I wish somebody had a program for this, or I wish somebody will do something like that. And lo and behold, as you go to turn over rocks, you find there's 15 other programs that have been there and done that.
Yeah. And if I can also plug FPEA, they
Absolutely.
have a searchable database on their website where you can look for groups near you. You can put in your postal code.
That's right.
And the distance you want to search. And not every group is going to be on there, because you have to, as a group, like contact them and have yourself added. But at least that's a place to start, where you can kind of search what's in your area for different types of groups, and they have them separated by type. So like if it's a co-op or, whatever it is hybrid, I'm scrolling through hybrid, umbrella, co-op. So if you're looking for a particular sort of thing, you can also search the FPEA database for the groups that have registered to be in that directory.
Yeah.
And if you connect with some of the parents in that group, they typically know what else is available if they've been in home education very long.
Yeah. And it may take some effort, because I know that up here in Tallahassee, one of the big ones doesn't seem to have too much public facing. You get on their email chain though, and you get worked into their email loop. And
that was so funny. That was so funny to me, because I guess it's been around long enough that it was established as kind of like an old school email chain and hasn't really upgraded from that. So when we first moved up here, everybody was asking me, "Oh, are you on I think it's like Tallahassee Christian homeschooler or something." They're like, "Are you on?" I'm like, "Where do I find it? Like, do they have a website? Do they have?" And there's virtually nothing you can find. You just, you have to be added to the email list. So you have to go and find that and request to be added. But it is the main resource that most of the parents here I've talked to get their information from.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was really interesting, because I wouldn't have even known it was there if someone hadn't told me.
Yeah.
Is it Teach?
No, let me see. For any of you
that's one of the first ones that was started. And so the leaders in that group are my age or a little bit younger. So they're probably not going to go to and it's, it's almost free to be in the group. So, they don't have the resources to make websites and somebody monitor them and all the things that it takes to do it.
It's the Tallahassee Christian Homeschoolers Forum. But the only way, there's not actually a forum. That's the funny thing. The only way that you can access it is they have it set up as like a Google. I don't even know how to explain it.
Or something.
It's a Google group. Yeah. But everything seems to just happen via email.
Yeah.
So technically, I think there is a Google group where you can visit, and there's like a feed you can look at, but it's very basic. So everybody basically just watches their email notifications, I think.
So this is a good example of kind of where we started the conversation. When you're Googling and you're trying to find, and how do I plug into one near me or that, the AI hallucinations are real. Keep that in mind. But also in a culture that prides itself on do it yourself, go your own way, it will be like herding cats to try to like connect sometimes. And that's part of the beauty. You get, when you want to be left alone, you get to be left alone. But also making those connections can be a little bit more challenging to find them. Turn over a couple of rocks. I think that is one of the reasons why it's a little painful to do all of that and try to connect. And it's easier sometimes to just go, well, is there a class at the public school I could take? Well, is there an AP class I could take? Is there a robotics team there I could plug into? And the flip side of that would be that if not, because the public school is being resistant, or they're like, say, well, we don't really take your kind here, or whatever the answers are, because they're just not used to it and they don't know how, and it's not something that they even want to do sometimes. They don't really want to help. They can delay and push back, and then you can be very frustrated. And the truth is, just like right around the corner from you could be one. Very simple and easy. It might take some sorting and sifting and searching. It's really important that as we do that, we don't seek to make policy poor policy, or we don't seek to push for poor policy. And what I mean by that is, the more that you force the government schools to systematically force them to allow home education access, and force them to take care of and bring in under their purview, or offering them this, and we're gonna do these 4 classes for them, and that. The more that you push and the more that you push to get back underneath the umbrella of the government-run schools, the more they're going to have oversight and questions and monitoring set up, and, well, you have to do these standards. The more that you seek to be under that umbrella, the more encroachment you get. So we want to be...
Let me make a distinction
Yes,
here,
ma'am.
because while PEP students by law have the same rights and flexibility, I think is the word. It's not rights, it's opportunities. But
Yes,
in law, the nuance is money.
Mm-hmm.
And always it goes back to money.
Mm-hmm.
So the public school is able to draw down funds for your child if you're taking a class that the state pays for, if they're sitting in that classroom, if you're registered as a home education student. If you're registered as a PEP student, the state already gave you the money to spend the way you want to spend it, and therefore the school cannot draw down money for your student.
Mm-hmm.
We're working, and we have been for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
on a bigger scale, almost opposite of what Jason just said, but we don't see it that way, is to require the school districts to contract with Step Up for Students, or AAA,
Mm-hmm.
to pull down funds from there if you sign your PEP student up. It doesn't come directly and bring regulations into your home, but it's with the third-party entity that has the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so instead of pulling it down from the DOE, they're pulling it down from your scholarship, but it goes to the school district. So that's part of what parents don't understand about the nuances between PEP and home education in law. And it's really important because the school district has to be paid for what they provide.
Right.
Florida Virtual figured that out right off the bat,
Yes.
because their mindset is more entrepreneurial in the way we set it up back in the late 90s. And so they thought, whoa, we're going to miss out on this money if we don't figure out how to come up with a contract. And boom, their attorneys figured it out pretty quickly. And the problem that they've got now is getting the scholarship funding organizations to hold that money in a student's account until completion of the course, because they don't get paid quarterly. They get paid on the completion of the course. So that's a really, really important thing to know. But if you can't find a school district that will allow you to have your child enroll, look at the Florida Virtual School. They have all kinds of clubs. They may even have a robotics club, and they would welcome you to come because they've already figured out how to draw down the money. We're still pushing, and a few districts have finally caught the idea of pushing parents away who have PEP means they don't get any money.
Yes.
So if they were to come up with a contract so they could accept that money, then it's to everybody's benefit. It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So I don't have a recent count, but out of the 67 counties, I think the last count we had was about 13.
No, like 25.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm behind. I don't get an update on
It
that
might be
often.
more.
Okay, that's great that they've come on board. School districts are cumbersome. As I like to say, the wheels of bureaucracy are oiled with epoxy.
Yeah.
So if they've done it that way 100 years, why change?
Yeah.
That's their attitude.
Yeah.
And many of them, if you've been watching the Alachua County School Board publicly say, we don't want those kids. We don't want to change.
Right.
Why should we have to? So you need to be careful how you elect your school board members if you're a believer in school choice, because some of these nuances make a huge difference in what you can access if you're either a home education parent or a PEP parent. And for us, Jason taking the total lead here, I'm just kind of hanging on, giving advice. Yeah, right. And this is the point I wanted to make earlier, is that terminology in statute is very important and it needs to be defined. So we've been trying to define home education instructional programs. When we put that in there, it was clearly a program that's provided basically for homeschoolers, eclectic classes chosen by the parents, but the parent is clearly directing the education of their child through a home education program. Given 2 or 3 years, many businesses have figured out that's a loophole and that they can get qualified in that loophole and they can pull down your money and provide services, but they are technically not a home education instructional program. We don't have a problem with other options for parents.
Correct.
We just want clear definitions so that if something awful happens, let me just use microschool. Microschools have a potential of some pretty scary things happening. We think about all the people that are directing this are going to be great people. How do you know? There's absolutely nothing in statute that would require background screenings, oversight for what they're doing with your money, none of that stuff. However, if you go to a different type program, parents are involved enough that they know what's going on. And typically they happen in churches because they will open their doors to these programs. And most of those churches, I would venture to say all of them, because of liability purposes, have background screenings for those people. They even have background screenings for volunteers on Sunday morning. So they're very, very concerned about that. We're concerned about that because we don't want something to happen in a microschool or whatever else they're calling these in the future to bring in to further examination or regulation a home education instructional program.
Yeah.
So Jason and I are looking far down the road. What could happen? How do we protect children, your children, by requiring minimal, very minimal regulation if your child is not in your home under your direct control. And we're running into some pretty intense regulation. That's why we're thinking in terms of, wait a minute, let's establish a definition, and then let's set what the regulations are for that program, because the state, the legislators, and even the Department of Children and Families are struggling with, are these child care programs?
Right. Yeah. There are other entities and other organizations within the way our government and bureaucracy is set up to run that also have responsibilities, and they have spelled out duties when people are together and their parents are not present and they're under the guidance of someone else. There are regulations that govern all of that, and we're very cautious and careful that we're protecting home education environments to be home education environments, to be the traditional way in which we have done the DIY of of education itself. You know, parents teaching their own kids and doing that. And so it's not a distinction without a difference. It's very important. Those are some very important differences. And I wish that we could say that we could just protect parents' rights to be left alone with their kids completely and not define anything and leave it all open and just say, hey, parents get full authority, full reign, full everything. No one will even look over their shoulder. I wish we could do that. I think that would be great. The problem is all of the other entities in which they have regulations and rules that they're supposed to go look over the parent's shoulder. So they have a job to do, and they're employed to do that job. So we've got to give boundaries. And the way that you give boundaries is you give something a definition and say, leave this one alone. So you don't have to look over that.
And all of those programs are defined, and they have their own set of requirements. So by not having a definition for some of these programs, you haven't limited the regulations that can take place. So when we developed the home education law that became, or bill that became law, we were careful about having only very minimal requirements, which is about as little as you can get away with. However, there was a bill introduced in 1991 because of the other departments that oversaw elder care, child care, all of those things. They lumped home education in with that, and they wanted to, and this became law, we had to undo it, but they wanted parents to undergo a background screening before they could home educate their child. And I said, I mean, my argument was, and it happened because we didn't have computers. You had to be in the committee at the time it was discussed. You had to be in the session at the time it was discussed to know what was actually happening. So by the time I saw that, it was already a bill that was being heard on the House floor, and we didn't have any way to intervene in that.
Well, so a good example would be like New Jersey. A lot of people say, oh, New Jersey, you don't even have to notify them that you're homeschooling. You can just be left alone to homeschool. Isn't that great? Isn't that what we should have it that way in Florida? Well, now New Jersey is hearing bills that are going to change that because they go, wow, there are no guardrails on this at all. There is no, you don't have to register an intent at all or any of that. And so now that they're seeking to do that and they have no framework, what is that going to look like? And Brenda's making an excellent point here, which is that putting in the definitions and putting in the framework and protecting that framework is critical, because a lack of framework invites regulation. It really does. When the framework is is open and left alone, there's nothing that spells out this is what it is, this is how it's set up, and then you're left alone, great. That's awesome. We want it to be that protected and have enough protection where it looks like it is something, and it's spelled out and it's defined and then left alone as such. Other places where you're just free range, while that seems wonderful on the surface, it's going to invite scrutiny, especially at times when things are divisive. Virginia is in a very weird place right now because of the political atmosphere in their House of Delegates. And it is the tug of war that's going on with things that you would expect not to come out of Virginia. It's supposedly open and free and homeschooling, and now you're seeing a lot of different laws come out of it.
Well, and several months ago, there was an incident in Florida, I believe, with a home education instructional program because the local officials said it looked like a private school. So that is, that's another reason why having these things defined in statute is important, because then you can point to it and go, no, we're not a private school. Yeah. Those regulations don't apply to us. We're this, and this is what these are our regulations, and we're fulfilling those.
You say you're a homeschool program. You definitely look like a school to us. So you're a school, and you should be regulated like a school and treated like a school and have to do everything that the school does. And it's like, whoa, hold on.
Right. This is if there's no definition for anything else to point to, then it's hard to make an argument against that.
And this is why the distinctions.
Well, recently we had somebody contact us who was meeting in a church, who was providing classes, and they are being targeted by DCF because they said they're a child care center. Right. Oh my, you want to talk about regulations? Yep. Whoa, private schools have a lot. People do not realize. I compiled them all in a book back in about 2000 from all the state and state and federal regulations, and it literally made a book. Mm-hmm. So whether you're aware of that or not, in that category, there's a lot. Yeah. Then when you move into child care, it is so regulated, it's scary. So it's important for us to define what these programs are, even though we're not doing them. It's important for us to help define them in order to prevent them from becoming overregulated or called something that they're not.
And I would go further and say that it's not just about policy and definitions. It's about culture and words in general. Before it ever gets to the House or the Senate where the words are being defined legally, it's about us culturally. Because what you were talking about with DCF and those definitions, there are a lot of child care programs that want additional revenue. They want to, we'll dabble in some additional education. We'll throw some classes in, and a holistic approach to serving your kids' needs. And they basically are turning them into small little private schools, but they're calling them home education programs. And I don't want to pick fights, but they're stealing words because financially that's how they're going to get access to certain monies and be able to do that. And no one's really pushing back on that and going, no, you're not home education. Well, we are. It's in a home, and it's just this and that. And it's laughable to the people who, for the last 40 years, fought to get it where it is. But it's not to all of those who are new, who don't know, and they're listening to AI hallucinations or TikTok.
I was going to say, if we can circle back to AI, just because I was curious, I Googled, is microschool a type of homeschooling in Florida? Because microschool is one of those things that does not have a definition in statute, and they didn't want a definition for all the reasons we've discussed, and we were advocating for it to be defined so it could be protected.
We
for all the
didn't give them
reasons.
language.
Yes, for all the reasons so we're not against micro schools.
Correct.
But we're trying to carve out protections for these different approaches parents are wanting access to.
Yeah.
But Google is very confused because it says, yes, a micro school can be a type of homeschooling in Florida, as they often operate under homeschooling laws. Right. But then in the next sentence, it says many micro schools are legally structured as private schools or homeschool programs. I'm like, those are not the same thing. And they have entirely different laws related to them.
Is a literal word salad. That's correct.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
You can't be a private school and a home education.
So let's be very
at
clear.
The same time.
We're not against micro schools. I think micro schools are great. I really, personally, Jason Crawford thinks they're great. And the Home Education Foundation loves when parents get to flex their education rights. So absolutely, micro schools are great. I think as an alternative to government-run schools, micro-educational entities are fantastic. And so I applaud that, and I love it. I want to be careful because what's happening is all of the cultural ways in which homeschooling was homeschooling or home education's home education is being ballooned up, and everyone who wants a stab at the money is saying, well, that's what we are now too. We've made our program that. We've made our childcare program that. And it what is the distinction, when you look at the rules and the exceptions that are carved out by DCF as to what kind of programs get exceptions, it's very important. If you're not going to read those, I wouldn't start a program where it's a group, because you need to know what the exceptions are that keep them off of your back. You need to know those, and you have to construct your program in a way that keeps them off of your back. And there's several different exceptions that do that. And it's important to know what those are. And when we get lost in the word salad of, well, we're like a co-op, kind of like a homeschool program, little micro entity school thing. We help parents homeschool. This word salad thing, this TikTok influencer thing, this AI hallucination jumble mix is not where it's at, because there are legal ramifications for this.
I was going to say, if I can just throw in, as a parent, you also need to be doing your own research and not just taking the word of a program that tells you, oh, we're this and we fall under this part of the law and you're totally fine. Because as the parent, you are the one responsible for making sure that you are in a legal attendance track that satisfies the state's requirements for attendance for your child, and that you're following whatever the requirements are of that particular track, whether it's private school or PEP or home education or private tutoring. You need to know what those requirements are, rather than just trusting some entity to tell you that, oh, they're all being met, it's fine, because you're the one who's going to be held legally responsible for your child's education.
So I want to go ahead.
I get one more last comment every time, so this is my last comment.
Okay.
Remember, laws are not made for those people that do good.
Yes.
That's kind of a conscious thing. We know what's right. It's made for the 0.1% of evildoers. And so in every program that is created, the state has a responsibility to protect children that are in these programs. So if it's not the parent directly, then there needs to be some overall protection in the program. And that can vary from a little to a lot. But we're hoping that if we can define some of these terms and make a distinction, that it would be the things that good people are already doing. You don't need to fear the regulation. But enough catch in there that if you're not doing the right thing, I mean, I could give you lots of examples of twisted minds that would like to do evil to children.
Or just fraudulently take the money.
Or take your money. And so I think laws are protecting us from evildoers. And those parents that are going to do right, they should not have a problem at all with minimal regulation in whatever comes out. These are just the start of new school choice options. And we are for parents. We are for parents having the right to make the choices for their child, not the state, not anybody else. But we also can't stand by and not help craft laws that will make a clear pathway for some of these new choices that are coming down the line just to protect children.
Yeah. Yeah, like Newton's third law, for every action there's an opposite but equal reaction. So a lot of times this plays out to be true culturally, emotionally, and policy, etc., politically, where if there's not guardrails and the action goes way out here in left field, well, you better believe that the regulation is going to be opposite and equal. It's going to go
absolutely
way over here this way. And it is hard under those circumstances for cooler minds to prevail, because the thing that no one believed should ever have been a thing was a thing. And now we've got to make sure that never happens again. And they'll go hard. So I want to kind of wrap this up if I can. I think that it's important to understand that the distinctions do make a difference, and that it's not a matter of trying to carve out our sandbox and let no one play in it. By all means, I want all parents to teach their own kids. I think that would be great. I think the world would be a better place if every parent was taking responsibility diligently for their own children, their own upbringing, that parents poured in culturally and philosophically into the minds of their children, and educational programs that were available taught skills that kids didn't have access to learn because of whatever their circumstances are. That would be fantastic. That's not what we have. And so protecting parents' rights is key, and protecting the ways in which we have guarded home education for the last 40 years after carving out the rights is also key. The way that we do that is by guarding the language. Language is everything. Language is life. Those words matter. They do make a distinction, and they do make a difference, and it's very important. It's vital. Co-ops are a thing. When parents get together and they cooperate in the education of all of their children together, that's cooperative education. Home education, where you teach your own kids in your own way. There are other types of education. Private schools. It's a school. It's a system. A systematic approach to educating, and the school admin, and they all put together and they pick the curriculum, and you say, hey, I like that program, I'll sign on to that program, and you do it. And they have government-run schools where you go, hey, I need that. I need that freedom of time, and I need my kids to go there. And so you put them in the government-run schools, and the government teaches them the governmental standards that they all agree on, that the legislator puts together, and that's what you get. Each of these are distinct, and each of them are different. And we have to understand those things. We have to see them for what they are, and we can't get lost in the newness of a new crowd kind of coming in and not knowing the terms. We can't get lost in the AI hallucinations. We can't get lost in the TikTok influencers, Instagram from all over who don't even homeschool in your state. They might be from another state or country. We've got to make sure that we understand, as customized as an education is to a child, that home education is that customized to the place that your laws come from, and that's important. And we have to stand firm on those definitions and what they are. Brenda and I and Crystal and our board will be working on a series of questions that will help parents. We're going to put together a kind of litmus test, or a what's the best word for that? A program review form that will allow parents to ask key questions of a group before they decide that that's where they want to spend their money or do things like that. It's not going to be an official HEF seal of approval. We're not going to stamp any programs and say these are the good ones, those are the ones to avoid. We're not acting in that capacity at all. But we want parents to be armed with good questions, critical questions that they can ask, that maybe they don't think to ask, and a way to kind of rate the answers that you get so that you can ask them, go through that interview form, and then step back and go, oh, this program that we're going ranks high on parental authority. They let the parents make all of the decisions. This one ranks really low. It's a program where they'll do it all for you, but they rank high in convenience. Little things like that. They rank high in social, so there's time in between the classes, or there's not. It's very, you come, take your thing a la carte, and leave. Like, there are just some questions that we will be putting together. And if you want to be a part of that process, you're welcome to join our Discord and put your 2 cents in. We have a leadership channel in there that is invisible to all of the masses. It is for homeschool leaders who are leading a co-op, or they're leading a homeschool program, or they're leading their little educational entity. It is for homeschool leaders, or they lead a large group. Come in, put your 2 cents in. What are some good questions that you think should be asked? And ways in which you might rate some of the answers. I'd love to hear your feedback. We're trying to keep the form concise and short. I would like for it to be no more than 10 questions. But I think it would be really useful for parents to have a tool that, we can place into their hands and say, hey, look, use this. And when you get the answers based off of, what those answers are, you determine whether you like the answers or not. You determine of the questions which ones are more important to you. You don't have to. You can decide to weigh them how you wish, but I think it'd be a great tool, and it's something that we're working on. I wanted you guys to know we're working on it. I will be at the Department of Education later today also, talking with some of the members there about some of the civics, the Florida Civics and Debate Initiative, the Florida Civics and Debate Initiative. I'll be talking with them about ways in which to kind of maybe collaborate even on some civics and debate projects, which I think will be absolutely phenomenal. We're working on a quiz game with the James Madison Institute, where we'll be, for the 250th anniversary of the United States, we'll be going back to some of the founding fathers questions. There'll be a quiz game of questions, and they can all play. It'll be fun. And then we'll have historical characters that kind of come in and ask questions, and we hope to be able to do that at some of the conventions and conferences in the coming year. There's a lot that's in the works. I'll be going to there are several committee meetings this week. They're on a week-on, week-off kind of rotation from now until, I guess, the beginning of the year, when they will kind of hit the ground running in January this year, as it's an election year. So there's a lot to look out for. If you're wondering, if we're working on some stuff, or we're watching certain bills, or if any bills have been filed that pertain to home education or anything like that, you should join our Discord. It's free to join. It does not cost you anything. There is a legislative updates channel in which we post all of that information, and we will be keeping all of our live updates there because we have control over that, and it's not something that, an algorithm will or won't show you the notifications. We make sure that if you want the most up-to-date information, you can follow that channel, and you'll get a notification every time something is posted in that channel. So I don't know if people know that, but about social media, but if you're following someone on social media, you don't actually get every single notification when they do a YouTube video or Rumble or Facebook. You get
Or sometimes you get the notifications days later,
Later.
whenever they decide that they want to ping you to bring you back to the app or whatever.
Yeah, so YouTube or Facebook or the apps, the social media apps will control all of that. So you don't necessarily get a 1-to-1 ratio when something is posted and you get that information. So don't know that a lot of people know that. But anyway.
And
in
the Discord, you can also control, like if you don't want all the notifications,
Yep.
you can mute the channels. So it gives you control over what notifications you get and what you don't.
You can mute it for a day or a week or forever. You can mute all channels, but one channel that you want the information from that channel, or that way you can go look at it when you want to go look at it, but not be bothered by it. You have control over that user experience fully in Discord, which is why we use it as a tool for our main communication tool for the HEF. So I don't have anything else. Brenda has already gone. I think she had another appointment, and so we're thankful for her. We're going to do our wrap up that we usually do here. I'm going to say thank you to the parents of the free state of Florida and all of the home education parents out there who you take your job seriously and you pour into your own children with effort and diligence daily, and you make those memories yours. It's absolutely fantastic. We thank FPEA, Arete, Fisher, Precious Metals, and TBHC Group for being our top sponsors. And as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for doing what you do. And we're here to support. And this week we will be at the Capitol as your voice. As things progress, and we'll let you know what we find. We'll work together to protect parents' rights in education.